Sup, y'all? This is Vocab Malone, street apologist, and we are live. Got a brand new live stream show. I'm very excited about to bring you an amazing, incredible, dynamic panel. We got some legitimate heavy hitters on here right now. I just double checked. The live stream is good. I'm super excited about this. We're calling this Kemet on Trial 2.0 and waiting for some people to come in the room. We'll be joining soon, I know. And we've been announcing this all week on Instagram mainly. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, you do need to follow me on Instagram. Instagram is just at Vocab Malone. And I'm going to be giving you a lot of other people today to follow who are excellent and incredible apologists. And my goal today is really just to host and let them do all the heavy lifting. And also, I would really, really love to see you become familiar if you aren't already with their ministries. A lot of you already are, but you know what? It's 2019. It's about to be 2020. I want to go into 2020 with urban apologetics, the strongest it's ever been. And I'm just one little part of that by God's grace, So we got to have MJ Jackson from Dallas, Nefertiti from Florida, Chris Prolific from Columbus, Ohio, and I'm going to have them on, and we're going to discuss this Vince Bantu Brother Jabari debate. All three parts are out, including the Q&A. People are watching it. We feel like it's been circulating. Alfredo, BK Apologist, got to follow him. Adam Coleman, True ID Apologetics, got to follow him. They broke it down. We're going to do the short version of that with some different personalities. And so without any further ado, let me unmute everybody. Boom, and boom, and boom. And welcome to Street Apologist Live, where we look into the overlooked and serve the underserved. All right, how y'all doing tonight?
Bless, man. Bless. Good.
All right. MJ, let's go real quick. People need to subscribe to your YouTube channel because they need all the books and the resources behind what you're going to be saying tonight, and you always drop them on your YouTube channel. How do people find it, bro?
You can find me at MJ Jackson, the Urban Christian Institute. That should pull up my channel. Please subscribe. I also have a Facebook page, the Urban Christian Institute, that you can follow as well. And yeah.
All right, I'm gonna keep track. Let's push this man's subscribers up, and let's also encourage this man to put out more videos. I don't have any complaints about you except you don't drop enough material, man. Drop that material, man. Everything you do is classic. What about you, Chris? You got a nice setup there. You're looking good, man. How do people subscribe to your YouTube channel?
YouTube.com/Chris Featherstone Vision United Podcast. I addressed theology, Bible, Jesus, apologetics, all wrapped up in one channel, discussing many, many different things. A lot of Christian cults. I actually had an interview with my comrade Nefertiti about Kemet before, and I've also had a interview with Vocab Malone about prosperity. Actually, I was on his channel about it, and actually had him on my channel about Hebrew Israelites. Just dealing with a lot of things within pop culture and apologetics, man. So check it out.
No doubt. And I actually listened to that interview before we did this. That was a great interview. I hope people definitely do check that out. Nefertiti, when she was on with Chris Featherstone. Nefertiti, you do stuff on YouTube, as mentioned, but you traffic primarily these days in Facebook. So how do people get a hold of you on Facebook? And anything else, of course, you want to let them know, because once they hear you speak, I know they're going to say, how do I find more of this?
So Facebook, my name is Nefertiti, Nefernitty. If you're going to put it in the search bar, or the URL is facebook.com/Nefertiti for Esquire. YouTube is just Nefertiti. And then I'm also dropping at the end of this month, Nefertiti.com, where I'll be hosting urban apologetics courses. So you'll definitely want to check that out.
Oh, nice. That sounds real good. All right. We definitely need some of that. Okay, so we are discussing tonight, ladies and gentlemen, a very unique debate that I don't think in this way has been done until just now, until when it just happened. And it'll be interesting to see when it happens again. So let's try to describe this debate to people. Let's say, now some people know about it. We know that. Some people don't know about it. But how would you introduce this debate and explain the importance of this? Because I want people to understand what we're talking about tonight is really important. And I don't know if people will always grasp that. Let's help them see the gravity of this. Who wants to go first to do that? Let me see. Who's paying attention? MJ, drop it. Nefer, drop it. Chris, drop it. Let's explain people. Let's set the stage here.
Okay, yeah, this was a monumental debate. The last debate that we had of something like this, it took place, I believe, in the early 90s with Khalid Muhammad and one of our pastors. I can't remember the pastor's name, but it was a big deal. And we haven't had a debate of this magnitude for quite some time. Somebody can help me out in the chat, but we haven't had a debate like this for some time. These guys come on the internet, or they find a Christian who's within their epistemic rights to believe in Jesus Christ, but they'll find some Christian on the street who might not know how to combat them, and they'll put them on video camera attempting to demonstrate something, or they'll debate a Hebrew Israelites on the Bible and things like that, and attribute that to Christians. So yeah, we needed this debate to take place. We needed to show that there are good reasons for the faith that we have. There are good reasons to believe. These reasons justify us and things like that. And it's time to wake up, so to speak.
That's right. That was good. I forget who I said was going next, but whoever is going next, I forgot. One thing we didn't tell people yet is who these guys are. I mean, we just said these guys, but who are these guys?
So for me, the way I see the debate is, like you said, it's monumental. So what it is basically, as a believer in Jesus Christ in the 21st century and probably prior, there's been a lot of pushback from the urban community that is non-Christian. And they try to find arguments such as Christianity was a copy of the ancient Kemetic religion or Egyptian religion, or they'll say that Christianity is the white man's religion. And so this debate was an attempt to get both sides of the story out in front of the people. And I think Dr. Vince Bantu did a phenomenal job in presenting the information and citing his sources. And so we'll get into some of that in a little bit, but I think that's why it was important, so people can see the discussion and see the sources as well.
Excellent. Chris, what would you say? And also, we're going to have to at some point kind of explain a little bit about what is a Kemet, what is an Egyptologist, you know what I mean? And maybe who is Brother Jabari. But what would you say, Chris, as people start to understand, oh, okay, this is a big one?
I think it's important for just the Christianity at large to understand what Kemet is, and specifically the pull of Kemet to the African-American community, particularly with Christians, because a lot of times you can have a lot of Christians who were former Christians, or even from Jabari's standpoint, he was a Catholic and he calls himself a Christian, which there's a lot of different things within Catholicism and Christianity that can be a pull of people who are potentially Black and Catholic. Oh, you're Christian, but this is, you're practicing this, and this. Well, you should embrace your inner, culture and things like that. And just really having a really pulse on the alluring things that someone from the Kemet practice can pull in from an African-American. Jabari, he has on YouTube, I've watched a lot of his stuff, and he's had shows with people sharing stories of them formerly being Christians and now practicing Kemet because of different things. And so I think as Christians, specifically Christians in the African-American community, just be high on the radar for just tactics that can be used with, and as we'll see with these videos, there's no scholarly sources. It's just kind of alluring tactics and very eloquent speech, as Jabari has, which I will admit that he has very eloquent speech, and those things can be enticing to someone to bring them out of the Christian community. So just be very careful of that. Well,
since you just said that, I'm going to try to play the first clip. I'm using a somewhat different program and setup than I usually use, so I'm hoping that this works. I'm going to play a clip that is directly related to what you just said, Brother Chris, in the beginning of when Jabari is speaking. Here we go. All right, I'm sharing my screen. It's not, it doesn't, okay, I'm going to be sharing my screen in here. Let me set this up here in a second. But Nefertiti, could you give the quick thumbnail sketch of, we mentioned Kemet a few times. Exactly what is that? That's what I want to make sure people understand.
Yeah, sure. So in what we call the conscious community, people often refer to ancient Egypt as Kemet, as Egypt is the Greek name given for the area, the area we now call Egypt. So their argument is that originally it was known as Kemet, which means the Black Land.
Right. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. All right. It's man, I'm going to share this, but I'm worried the sound's not going to go, and it might be a problem when I try to do this. I might, here's what might happen. I might drop out for a second and then rejoin. I'm going to see what's going to happen here, guys. All right. So if I drop out for a second while I'm trying to set this up, keep it going. Sorry, I'm gonna hit this button, and I don't know for sure what's gonna happen because I'm trying to make sure I can share this. It's trying to tell me I need to do something different that it didn't tell me before I started the show. So let's see what happens there. All right. Oh, yep. I'm gonna drop out for a second. All right. Keep on bringing it down, and I'm gonna come back so I can play clips because right now it's not letting me play clips unless I sign out and sign back in. So I'm about to drop out in a second.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna interview MJ and Neff. All right,
Yeah.
the black version of Street Apologist Live here. We went full Kemet here. So yeah, Neff, you were talking about Kemet, and we talked before, and there we go. I think we're about to get vocab on, but okay, maybe not. All right, yeah, so with Kemet, there he is again. Let me know when you're going to come in.
Yeah, apologies on that. Seriously, I'm worried about this thing sharing the computer sound. It's giving me difficulties. All right, I'm gonna try to play this clip, and we'll see. And hopefully after that, there's no more problems like that. All right, let's try this. All right, is everyone? I'll need you to
indicating that you're screen sharing.
Okay, good. All right, now let's see here. All right, it's making me do one other thing. Man, this hasn't happened before. All right, Chris, could you go on with what you're saying? Give me a second. I got to do this technical stuff. I'm so sorry.
No problem. So we were talking, Neff, I'll get to you, Mike, Matt, sorry. With Neff, we were talking about the Kemet and just how it was really started to get the influence from a European culture. So you have the Rosetta Stone going into the 1800s, and then I believe Massey was born in 1828. Start learning a bunch of different languages, and he was at the infancy of the Rosetta Stone and things like that, and the hieroglyphs discovery. Then you have Massey coming in, so you want to tag on that.
All right, hold on. I think I got it, guys. I think I got it. Everyone, again, extreme apologies. I'm sorry. Everyone, let me know if you can hear this. After this, every clip should play if this one works. All right, so I'm going to play this. Everyone, if you can hear the audio when I play this, everyone in the live chat, hit number 1. All right, here we go.
Negative.
You guys didn't hear it?
No, and it's not playing all the way through. It's choppy.
What? All right, let me see if there's anything why it would do that. Record on a share computer. Yeah, I got a share computer sound. Oh, the live chat can hear it though. Oh boy. Wait, but other people saying they can't. Huh. All right. That doesn't make sense. Everyone knows how to use sound on Zoom, right? It just plays directly from it, right? Share computer sound.
I'm not a Zoom guy.
Yeah, okay. I know other people said they didn't hear it. Okay. Let me try one other thing here. Yeah, it's saying Record on this computer, disable high video, but share computer sound. It's saying that it's sharing it. All right, let me try this one more time. Man, oh man, oh man. We might, this would be super lame if I can't play the clips, but I wonder if that's what it's going to do to me. Let me try something else here. All right, what about this, everybody? Let me know if you can hear this.
Negative.
All right. I wonder if I take out my headphones. All right. Now let me try
Maybe
this.
I can share. Oh no, I was gonna say maybe one of us can share.
I'm gonna say to you, family, that I was raised a Christian in a black church.
I can hear a little bit more.
I can hear that.
So you're hearing it from my microphone, aren't you?
Yeah, it sounds distant.
Oh.
No, but we both have a Yeti. So only thing you have to do is just connect. Okay, well I hear some static right there.
All right. So here, how about this?
I'm gonna say to you, family, that I was raised a Christian.
Better.
It was Roman Catholic, but it was black. There wasn't nobody else there.
Oh, just for that little clip. I don't know why it's not sharing it through the system.
It's worth it.
I don't know why it's not sharing it through the system. This is all on me 100%, but it looks like I'm going to have to share the audio through my microphone for this show unless I can figure out what it is. Okay, so that first clip, doesn't it show a lack of familiarity with the audience and probably with Christianity? I mean, what do you say about that first clip there? What's going on?
I'll chime into this one. Just from a typical, I mean, just from a very basic theological standpoint. I mean, you can't come to a Protestant audience and say, well, hey, I was raised Catholic. Hey, so you guys have been duped. Well, according to Luther in 1517, yeah, you've been duped. so it's like that you can't reach a Protestant audience and say, hey, I was raised Catholic. This is the reason why I don't think this is valid. So that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny how he said, wasn't anybody else there? The question of the congregation's diversity or ethnic makeup has nothing to do with the belief system. And so this Protestant, largely Reformed gathering of people, you know, based on at least Epiphany's kind of officially Reformed-ish, whatever, they're kind of like, what?
Right. Like, we're not Catholic, so this doesn't apply to us. So.
All right. People cite their form of Christianity as some sort of authority, you know.
Yeah.
But he doctrinally, biblically, he doesn't really have an authority because he doesn't understand what we believe. And so I find that also a lot of the arguments that he'll make will be based on his perception of Christianity through a Catholic lens. And so it just doesn't apply in most cases.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's see. I think that so that's Brother Jabari, everybody. Brother Jabari is the debater on the Kemetic side. And he's an engaging speaker. So by God's grace, this debate was not boring, very engaging. And he has some very interesting things he uses. I'm going to play this one. You guys will probably recognize this one. This one, I literally predicted he would say in the van right up there with the guys I was with. I said, he's going to say this at some point. And he literally did. It was the whole thing of you have to reevaluate your relationship with the truth. That's like a stock intro phrase that he uses. And so I want to play this one right here and let you guys hear this. So here's how Jabari sets it up. All right. So going into share screen mode, everything in regards to that is more difficult than it should be. I mean, I wish you guys could see this. It literally says share computer sound. And I'm sharing computer sound, and then it doesn't let me share the computer sound, but whatever. So here is this clip where he speaks on that, and he says, "Got to tell the truth." All right. Let me get this closer here.
I am obligated to tell you the truth. Now, sometimes when I tell the truth, people get bruised. I want to say at the offset that is not my intention to harm anyone. And if I tell the truth and you are bruised, the only thing that I will ask is that you reevaluate your connection to the truth.
Everybody able to hear that?
Yep.
All right. So what do you think when he does things like that, folks? What do we think when Jabari says and does things like that?
I think it's I think it's par for the course when it comes to alluring someone to their traditions, as Jabari would say. I mean, I'm really big into apologetics, just like everybody else here. You really specialize in Hebrew Israelites, and so that's not necessarily unique to Brother Jabari as far as just the way that he would speak to someone to really give someone in a way. It's even more soothing than a Hebrew Israelite. You know what I mean? A lot of people would even say it sounds a lot more. I can get a better connection, from him to say that. So it's not a unique approach to really have someone kind of open their eyes, so to speak, especially if they're Christian, particularly if they're Christian, regarding this debate.
Yeah, that's important. What do you think of, have you heard Jabari say stuff like that before, Nefertiti? Maybe you haven't, maybe you have.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys both said, it's something that he often says and something that it's kind of like part of the script. It's intended to make you feel as though they're implying cognitive dissonance. They're implying that you have an issue with the truth if you're not willing to accept what they're saying. But the fact could be that what they're saying is wrong, but they're shifting the burden from the facts that they're presenting to your reception of it. So there's a lot of mind games that they do play when it comes to this. And emotionalism, appealing to emotionalism is another one of his tactics, and he does it throughout the entire debate.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's important. Everyone should recognize what's happening. So when he says something like this, actually when any speaker is doing this, when they're trying to make some kind of compelling case, what he's saying could be true, or it could just be sort of rhetorical manipulation, because nobody wants to think they're believing a lie. So everyone tells you this is the truth. It might make you uncomfortable, but maybe it's making you uncomfortable because it's false.
Exactly.
This is important. I think people need to be ready, not just for the sheer intellectual aspect of apologetics, but sort of the emotional aspect. Don't let someone manipulate you by telling you, well, that's because this is the truth and you just have a problem with the truth. I don't know if Jabari is intentionally doing that. Either way, it's effective in how it's designed to work. But when you guys hear people do that, when you listen to a debate, to the audience, be wise. And that's why Brother Paul, long time ago, said, don't let anyone take you captive with empty philosophy. I think this is the kind of things he's talking about.
Yep, absolutely.
MJ, this is sort of how Kemet speak to Christians, isn't it?
Yes. Sometimes it can be very condescending, as if we don't know what we believe. Even when we refer to the ancestors, it's very disrespectful, in my opinion, to people like Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey and guys like that, where they basically appeal to something pragmatic. Well, Christianity was a tool. I've heard Dr. John Heward Clark say that it was a tool, and things like that, while discounting that these African ancestors knew exactly what they believed, and guys like Frederick Douglass were able to distinguish the authentic from the inauthentic. So it's very condescending, it's very disrespectful, and I try to call them out on it every chance I get. And one of my questions regarding to the truth, well, what do you mean by truth? Some people say, well, that's your truth, or truth pertains to a certain culture or a certain ethnicity or things like that. They got their traditions, we got ours. Well, is God's this impersonal force schizophrenic or something like that? Can this impersonal force not communicate? So yeah, it is a matter of truth.
You know what? Since you just brought that up, I'm going to go to something that's towards the end of the debate. This is the clip where it almost makes you scratch your head and say, is Jabari's real problem that Christianity claims to be exclusive? So Nefertiti, I'm going to play this, and I would definitely want to go to you first on this with what he says. Okay, so let me get this set up by God's grace. And all right, there's that. This is a lot easier on the other program I use, but the other program I usually use, it doesn't like to have guests. It doesn't like guests as much. So I'm like stuck with different problems. But here I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to turn this up. Everyone listen carefully. I apologize. The audio is a little bit lower on this, but check this out.
Sometimes, and I think I heard my brother say this too, sometimes what I hear Christians say is that their way is the only way. And that's a really difficult thing, folks. That's a really difficult thing. I mean, just historically, I mean, you know how many people lived on the planet before you are arguing Jesus came forth in the flesh? What happened to them? Are they sitting in purgatory waiting, and they now they have a card they got to check yes or no, or they go to hell? This is a difficult thing. Your spiritual tradition is like a map. There are many different ways to get there. I am not arguing that you must be Kemetic in order to be saved, in order to go to heaven. In fact, in the Kemetic tradition, it's about what you do. That's why our heart is weighed.
Oh, Nefertiti, go ahead and rant. You can rant.
Okay.
You don't have to hold back at all. I want you to completely rant. Just unload, okay?
All right, okay. Thank you for the license to do so. First of all, remember we were talking about his appeal to Catholicism and not knowing. We don't believe there's anybody sitting in purgatory waiting to check off no box, bro. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
Huh? Secondly, the issue with us claiming exclusive right to salvation, the Bible you say you're familiar with tells us that this is not something that adherents make up because we want to make somebody else feel bad. If we accept Christianity as the truth, and our position is that it is, then we take the principles that the Bible is putting forth and we adopt them. So I had somebody tell me the other day, you know, it's cool that you're a Christian, but when you start going so hard for what the Bible has to say, that's when it becomes a problem. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm a Christian and I follow what the Bible has to say. And what this Bible says is that there's only one way, and that's through Jesus Christ, the Son, who the Father sent so that salvation may be granted to us. So I don't know. I take issue with him saying Kemet does not offer salvation based on whatever, because Kemet doesn't give you salvation. Exactly. Kemet doesn't offer you a way to overcome sin. Kemet simply says, okay, like he said, it's based on works. So either you did this or you didn't do that. You know, upon death, there's a judgment scene, supposedly. This is why the process of mummification was in place, so that afterwards the person would rise to life and then have this list of negative confessions, basically saying, I have not committed X, Y, and Z. There's a list of 42 of them, which are tailored to each person. And so if your heart is placed on a scale, and if you confess X amount of things, then this dog, Anubis or Anoop, eats your heart and you go to hell, or you die, or you cease to exist, whatever the case is. There's no way of avoiding that. We are human beings, and we're flesh and blood, and we are susceptible to sin. We're susceptible to doing things that we may not even ourselves want to do, as the Bible says, right? So if you're going to tell me that I'm going to hell for doing the wrong thing, why aren't you offering me a way to stop doing it? And then finally, you know, you gave me a license to rant. Finally, I understand that it makes people uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable, but that statement that he said at the end, Christianity, your religion is just a map and there's many ways. Okay, well, my Bible doesn't teach that. Yeah. That can be your subjective opinion, but that opinion cannot be based on the Bible that I'm reading. And that's what I take issue with, is you want to revise and repackage what the Bible has to say and then try to offer that to me and tell me that's what I am supposed to believe, but that's not what the doctrine is saying. And so, yeah, Jesus is the only way. I'm sorry that makes you feel uncomfortable, but it's going to be uncomfortable at judgment when, you know what I'm saying, when you have to stand up and give an account for why you rejected him after he's put forth so much effort to bring truth to you. So that's my beef with it. If you don't believe it, you take it, you leave it, whatever, but don't try to rephrase it and repackage it and tell me how I'm supposed to be a Christian. No, if I'm a Christian, the truth is Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost just like just don't be such a zealot, you know. But it's like,
Right.
yeah, you're right. What you just referenced, Nephroniti, a bunch of scriptures. What was John 14:6?
Yes.
You know, there's those definite articles there for a reason. I am the way, I'm the truth, the life. But there's also I am the door. I am the good shepherd. Not some Egyptian deity with the animal head. That's not a good shepherd, even though they had the shepherd's crook. So that's a real thing. And someone in the live chat brought up a great thing, even using his analogy that I love. Chris, react to this. Miss Titus 2, subscribe to her channel, says, don't maps prove that all roads don't lead to the same place? Remind me again what I need GPS for.
Exactly. Like, why are you going like what? So you're so vain in your philosophy, as the Bible would say, that you're even alluring people to say that one map leads to the same place. Like that's not what I've seen. Plenty of maps, and typically maps lead to different places, to different locations. And as Nefer was talking about with John 14:6, Matthew 10 comes to mind. Matthew 10 says, I don't even know where to start. I mean, Jesus just come and just made it very clear. It says, all right, verse 33. Verse 32, it says, so everyone who acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I would deny before my Father is in heaven. Do not think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace but a sword. For I've come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a person enemies will be those of his own household. Whoever loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So Jesus makes it very clear in conjunction with John 14:6 that there's no all roads lead to Christ. There's no separation of theology except for what Christ is preaching and what Christ preached and what he continued to preach through apostles and prophets and so forth. So it's like it makes absolutely no sense that he would say something like that to a Christian audience, for one, and then for two, a lot of the things that he said as far as the Kemet tradition, and Nefer even brought it up as far as a noob, it has a very purgatory style vibe to it, which sides with this Roman Catholicism works-based former experience that is not the same experience as a Protestant experience, which his audience was. So again, it made no sense collectively.
Now, if it is the case that you're not really judged on some kind of Kemet eschatology on what you do, but rather, on what you believe, but rather what you do, and the heart is weighed, and supposedly merely by works, you can get it to weigh on the right side in your favor. Frederick Douglass is good.
Sure.
He didn't follow Kemet. He was a Christian. Need to make sure to remind everybody that was not accidental to what he believed and taught and did, by the way. But he's good then. I mean, tell me, to the Kemets who really believe in the afterlife. Now, some of the Kemets we understand are essentially atheists, who like pyramids. I mean, I'm saying that in a manner of speaking, but there's really no actually belief. That's why we respect Jabari. I think he's a true believer in the essence of Kemet. We actually respect, I think, and prefer that, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But to the ones who really believe in the afterlife and the weighing of the heart and the feathers and all that stuff, I mean, aren't there a lot of Christians who are going to be okay on that understanding? I mean, I don't know. It seems to be some problem.
Let me chime into that real quick to add on what you're saying. Wonder if I was someone like Nefer, for instance. She's a follower of Christ who likes to study about Egypt. She should be good to go, right? because if her basis is following the teachings of Christ, which do unto others, love your neighbors, the top two, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. With that type of template and embracing, Egypt roots, that's the best of both worlds when it comes to the, you know, Kemet philosophy. So I don't understand how there could be an argument against Christianity when essentially if I'm doing the things that Kemet teaches as a Christian, I should be off the hook.
Right. Excellent. By the way, everybody, you are listening to Kemet on Trial 2.0 Street Apologist Live. The man you just heard is Chris Featherstone. Please subscribe to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Featherstone. He's got
Chris
incredible.
Featherstone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not say that? Man, I did not say that. This is not my night. Apologies. youtube.com/Chris Featherstone. Just how it sounds. Spell it out. Subscribe to his channel. He's got incredible interviews on there. And he brings some interesting content, even in relationship to some current news events and stuff like that. He's always really measured and just knows what he's talking about. Nephronity, you heard her earlier. The main way to really keep track of her is on Facebook, facebook.com/NEFERNITTYESQ. If someone could please drop those links from the mod squad. If you guys could please drop those links in the live chat, I appreciate it. And of course, our brother MJ Jackson. Don't worry, we're gonna get to you, MJ, especially on the history stuff. You know what's coming. His links a little bit longer until we get some more subs. And so I want someone to go to MJ Jackson's website, please. And then if you guys, because some of my people already know it, make sure that you subscribe to his channel as well. Now, I'm going to play a similar clip to the one I just played because I think we're kind of in this mode of sort of like exclusive truth claims and whatnot. And this one is similar, in which part of what he says is, are you saying Christianity is better than Kemet? Now, the funny thing about that is that's kind of the point of the whole debate. It's just a very interesting approach, you know? Because remember, this is a man who has to tell you the truth, and you have to examine your relationship with the truth. That kind of statement, regardless of its rhetorical aim, is designed to make you think, I think, there's objective truth. There's this truth that stands here, and you can't change it. You got to ask, what's my relationship to this thing, right? And then other times it sounds like, do you believe in objective truth? This doesn't sound like it. So I'll play this in Nephronity. If I could get you go first again on this, because this just seems like so much up your alley. So let me find this one real quick. Yeah, this is the car analogy. Yeah. I like this one. Because to continue with the car analogy, I think this car analogy kind of backfires on him. Yeah. Okay. So here it is. Let's do this car analogy right here, and then we'll get to that. By the way, I got to talk to Brother Jabari after the debate, and he was super cool. So this is just apologetics. This is how we interact. This is what we do. This is not some kind of personal thing. Jabari is, I think, for a lot of us, our favorite Kemetic guy, and at least mine is. At least I'll speak for myself. Okay, so showing the screen. Can everybody see it? And then I'm going to play this, and hopefully you can hear it. And here's what he says here.
All right. But it's still Rome. If you say it spreads to India, it spreads to these places, what are you saying that the traditions that those peoples followed were less than Christianity? That is what you're saying. They were less than Christianity. If you're driving a Toyota and I pull up in a Benz and you take the Benz, you have said that the Benz is better than a Toyota, right? Let's make it plain.
Is that what we're saying?
So I held back from bringing this up because I thought you had this clip in your pocket and I didn't want to jump the gun. I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, he says that Christianity spread, and that he takes issue with the implication that as it was spreading naturally or supernaturally, that people made the decision to let go of their indigenous faith systems and believe in Jesus. Are you saying that they decided that Jesus was better than whatever they... Yes, bro, that's what happened. That's not just what we're saying. That's what happened. And it's not a measurement of whether one thing is better than the other. It's a measure of whether one thing is true, as you implied earlier, and the other isn't. And so I personally haven't been brought up in a different faith system. I don't deny that those other faith systems exist. I don't deny that there are deities that they're worshiping. I don't deny that they have interaction with what they believe to be ancestors. What I deny is that those spirits are of God. And so, yeah, Christianity is the better path. And like you said, he in this analogy, he calls the better vehicle. He gives Christianity the better vehicle, but I don't think anybody here would deny that both cars will get you to the same place, but not in this situation, right? But they're both vehicles. They just, we're not going to deny that one is a luxury vehicle and has a better value than the other one. And so I just don't understand why he takes issue with people making their own personal decision. It's kind of like what Jackson said earlier. He takes issue with people letting go of what they recognize to be not the proper way, and personally accepting Christ as their Lord and Savior. Like, that's the whole point. That's what we do. That's why we're out here. So he's basically blaming the ancestors, or calling the ancestors less than, by saying, oh my gosh, are you saying they let him go? Okay, so what happens, right? What happens when you recognize, or you read the slave narratives or whatever ancient documents, and you find that these people did in fact make an evaluation and switch to Christianity by choice rather than by force? Are they now less than worthy of worship as your other ancestors are because they chose to follow Jesus?
That's good. That's good. Okay, on this one right here, this is the first time we're playing something by Dr. Vince Bantu. So obviously Jabari's not debating himself. The brother he's debating is Dr. Vince Bantu, who did an excellent job, and it's just a classic, just classy all the way around. I'm going to play this clip because I think this relates. I'm trying to play clips as a tie-in. He's saying what you just said about people freely accepting Christianity, especially in this North African context. MJ, after this Bantu clip, I'd like to get your reaction to anything said, and maybe particular clip, or if there's some of the other clips you see, hey, here's a good time to play those. But I'm gonna set this up, and I want to start with you, if we could, when we come back. And again, everybody, please make sure all these panelists, you really need to subscribe to everything they bring. You guys can tell that this is a unique form of apologetics, and to be frank with you, it's underappreciated. That's why we give much love to Dr. Eric Mason, who is in the live chat. Much love and respect to him. And right now, let's play this clip, and I'm going to again turn my audio up as soon as you can. Here's what Dr. Vince Bantu said in relationship to that.
Is that Bisrat first entered Africa and Asia freely and developed without, and often in spite of, Roman and European involvement. From the very beginning in Acts 2, it showed that God in his providence chose a people group, the Hebrews, who themselves were of every color and every hue and were scattered through the diaspora in as the word says, in every nation under earth. Persians, Arabs, Libyans, Egyptians, Romans, Cappadocians, all people were gathered at Pentecost. And when the Holy Spirit fell and were sent out from there, the message of Bisrat continued to spread throughout the entire known world. And Bisrat grew with Jewish communities originally in these different places.
All right, now that's the first time people have heard Bisrat, but MJ, could you react to that clip, my brother? Are you able to hear me, MJ? Oh, you still mute? Okay,
Sorry
okay, go.
that.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Yes, that clip goes with a previous clip because Dr. Bantu has talked about how the message spread, and Brother Jabari had chided Dr. Bantu for using spread as a euphemism instead of his hypothesis that Jabari is proposing as to spread by violence. Dr. Bantu had pointed out that it spread not only to Egypt, but to India and to Asia, and henceforth where Jabari took issue with people coming to freely believe. What it comes down to is, has God spoken? If God has spoken, if he has entered into his own creation by the person of Jesus Christ, people have a choice to make. And the choice and the implication of that choice is that God is personal. He is not some impersonal divine force that Jabari likes to bring up. God is personal. God is also holy. And we have a choice whether we bend the knee now or whether we bend the knee later. But ultimately, yes, it did spread, and God is able to choose, and he's able to to interact with his creation. And by his grace, I'm a Christian today for that.
Amen. I'm going to play the clip you just referenced where he talked about, well, that spread is just a euphemism here. So there's really a debate. We're kind of getting into debates about lesser known aspects of church history. Now, I'm not saying that's how it should be. And that's one reason why I appreciate this debate, is because a good debate is educational. And I think there's so much knowledge and truth that came out of the follow-ups to this debate. And again, we got BK Apologist. Make yourself known if we could, Alfredo, BK Apologist, because I want everyone to definitely subscribe to you. Drop your information in there. Let's subscribe. Let's get people to subscribe to your channel. Let me play this clip, and then MJ, I'll come back to you, and then either Chris or Neff, if you guys want to follow up on the clip that MJ just referenced here. Let me get it. All right, here it comes.
It's the way that white people talk about it. The message spread. No, you killed some black folk. You defiled their temples.
One more time on that one.
It's the way that white people talk about it. The message spread. No, you killed some black folk. You defiled their temples.
All right, MJ, what do you think? Was Vince Bantu talking like a white guy there?
No, Dr. Bantu is going with the historical record, so to speak. We have a wonderful book written by Dr. Thomas Oden, the African Memory of Mark, that it talks about the earliest traditions about Mark, a Cyrenian Jew who happened to found a church in Egypt. And, you know, the Christians were not in power. Dr. Bantu had already referenced what was going on with Diocletian earlier, and I think Jabari outsmarted himself because he accused Dr. Bantu of lying. And I'm like, that proves the point that Rome could not have went according to what Jabari says, Rome to Egypt, Egypt to Ethiopia, and so on. That just blows that up right off the bat, because the Romans, Diocletian was killing Christians.
Amen.
So
I got that clip. I'm gonna play that clip because you're hitting it perfect. But before I play this clip,
yeah,
Nefertiti, you did something genius. It was simple and genius. Tell everyone how you put those clips together. That was like, it was just so classic. The way you did that, I was like, oh my goodness. Explain to people who haven't seen the full exactly how you did that and how to find that video, because that was excellence.
So that video is going to be on my Facebook page, but basically Jabari makes a claim and he's supposedly quoting Dr. Bantu, but so the debate goes in rounds. So Dr. Bantu finished speaking and then Jabari misquotes him. So I just pulled the clip up of what he just said, which was not what you're claiming he said. And then he claims that Dr. Bantu left out some pertinent information, but it's exactly literally what he just said. So, and it had to do with the persecution of Christians. And I think it just highlights the fact that revisionism, or him trying to rewrite history and paint a certain picture in order to appeal to that emotion of us having been persecuted, and that's how we came across Christianity. And so that's what the image that he's trying to portray. So I think that if you're being intellectually honest and academically honest about a certain subject, you can give certain concessions. So he could have easily just seated and said, okay, in this situation, yes, they were being persecuted, but maybe in some other situation, it was by force. But he just shot his whole credibility by blatantly misstating the facts. And so because people's memory sometimes is short, I just put the two clips together so we could see it and compare.
So it's so funny because Jabari is emphatic that Vince Bantu is deceiving everyone. And he's all, what he didn't tell you was that was before Constantine. And then Nefertiti plays the clip of Vince Bantu saying, before Constantine. I'm going to play some of it, though, in regards to the persecution, because this is important as well. I'm going to play this clip about the aspect of persecution real quick here from Dr. Vince Bantu. And I thought that this and then there's one other where he talks about not being from Rome. I might play these back to back. So give me a second to set this one up and then the other one. All right, there we go.
How would we say that Christianity came from the Roman Empire when they were massacring their own citizens who believed in this thing? We're throwing them in coliseums to the lions because they didn't want to pray to Jupiter and Pluto and all of these other Greek and Roman and Latin gods that everybody was being forced to pray to. This was in the Roman Empire. This is what we now call Europe. Now, on the flip, from the very beginning, in the first few centuries, Christianity was also in Persia, in the Persian Empire. And the interesting thing is that at that time, Christianity, the Bisrat, was actually more dangerous and volatile in what we now call Europe. That was where Nasrani were being were being killed left and right. But in the Persian Empire, the Nasrawi, or as they were called in Persia, Nasraye in Syriac, who spoke Persian and Syriac as well, this is what we now call Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. The Bisrat was growing freely in this particular context. And in fact, it was actually safer to be a Nasrawi in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan than it was in what we now call Italy, Greece, and Spain. That was where it was dangerous to be a Nasrawi. In the Roman Empire, that was where they were against the Bisrat. Persian Empire was like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool. You know, we're Zoroastrian and there's Hindus and Buddhists here. So you Nasrawi.
Real quick, while I set this other clip up, MJ, could you explain his use of the terms Bisrat and Nasrawi for the audience? I'm going to set this clip up while you're doing that, brother.
Okay. When Dr. Bantu was defining his terms, he appealed to Bisrat, which is an African translation of gospel or the way. And Nazrari is an African translation either to follower of the Nazarene or Nazareth or something along those lines.
Like the Nazarene, I think it's like the Nazarene sect type of deal, right?
Like a Nazarene sect type of deal. And you did have early Jewish Christians who went by, and these are not to be confused with the, oh my God, these are not to be confused with the heretics who were also Jewish, but you did have an early Christian sect of Nazarenes as well. They followed the law, but they didn't impose the law on other believers, so to speak.
Right. And so it's interesting that even that term he's using, Nazrawi, the way. I mean, this is people have known Christians as saying Jesus is the way, you know, and it goes all the way back to that, I believe. All right. So let me share this. This is the one where Vince Bantu speaking as well and kind of saying, hey, this is not from Rome. So let me share this and get the audio set up on that as well. And MJ, if you could comment on this one as well, and then I want to pass it to Chris, and then we're going to kind of change tracks as far as the nature of the clips. This is the last one of sort of this nature, I think. All right, here we go.
Again, all of the evidence that comes out of Axum and of Egypt at that time is Christian in nature. These are people who are choosing to do this. And so this is not something that came from the Roman Empire. So that point discounts the claim that it came from the Roman Empire. Axum was an independent nation, and they had a slave from Syria that they heard the Bisrat from, and then he chose to embrace it. What he did after that, engaging in warfare, which is wrong, does not change the fact that he himself freely chose to embrace this, and it was not from the Roman Empire. Second point.
All right, that's a little complicated. There's a lot there, and I want everyone to see, like, this is why some knowledge and understanding about our forefathers and foremothers in the faith is important. Because if we have a blank slate, along comes someone who is not friendly to the faith, I'll just say it that way, and they'll say, well, didn't you know this about your history? They may be telling the truth, they may not, but it's up to us to find out what is our family's history. And so, MJ, can you comment a little bit on that? Then I want to make sure everyone comments on this. The next clip I'm going to play is going to be where part of what Jabari is going to say as well, because, hey, we had all these different gods. We didn't fight like you guys did. So that's kind of related to that. Then that's kind of the last sort of history type of clip. But comment on that. I want everyone to go around this about this general round of questioning, because we're not playing all the clips related to this, but I think people need to understand what are we talking about right now?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, a good book to get that'll talk a little bit about that is this book right here. It's a history of Christianity in Africa by Elizabeth Hishi. And they talked about King Izana. And what Jabari tried to do was pretty much beat Dr. Bantu to the punch on that. But once again, you got some historical fudging going on, some historical revisionism going on with the first by saying that Frumentius was a Greek. Well, the truth be told, a Christian philosopher from Tyre, which is Syria, they were basically attacked by pirates, and there were two boys who were left, Frumentius and his brother. They wound up being took to Axum and raised there. Once Frumentius' father died, they were Frumentius and his brother were basically helping to govern and things like that. Frumentius wound up going back to Alexandria and being consecrated a bishop and sent back to a grown-up adult, King Izana. And that's basically when King Izana converted. This is well documented in this book. It's also documented in the Blessings of Africa. And what we have here is some historical revisionism going on by Brother Jabari as usual.
Excellent. And it's fascinating, the way he speaks of, he's trying to basically say the source of this Christianity is still European or white in essence. And it's interesting, even the way that the Syrian guy even got in there. I think he was captured by the Egyptians, and then it eventually became the mentor. But Nefertiti and then Chris, let's comment on this. Here's why I really want to zoom in on this. It's a lot of new names maybe for people if they haven't looked into this, and it could just be like, what are they talking about? But just like people, if they have a passing familiarity with church history, might be able to say Martin Luther did XYZ. I would love it if that was not all we knew about church history, and one day people could talk about the ancient North African Christian church with some facility. Wouldn't that be great? And this debate is a great place to start. Nefertiti.
While I have it in my mind, there's another book by an author that Brother Matthew quoted, Thomas Oden, another book called How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. And it does exactly what you just said. It talks about the ancient church fathers in Northeast Africa and their contributions to Christianity and some of the approaches to how we study the Bible, some of the approaches to how we understand certain faiths and certain concepts of our faith were formulated in Africa. So you'll definitely want to check that out. I know for sure it's on Amazon. But King Izana was an African king who accepted Christianity of his own volition. And so the problem that Jabari finds with this is that here we have a prime example of an ancient African who is a king who accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior. And so that's a big roadblock in his methodology. That's a big roadblock in his perspective. And so he has to try to find ways to disestablish it, to dirty it, basically, to make it look like it isn't what it is. And so what he does is says, okay, he was influenced from being a minor by these white people who forced him to be a Christian, and then he had no choice. Or he accepted Christianity as a political tool in order to gain favor with whomever. But the fact of the matter is, as Brother Matthew just stated, he became a Christian of his own will as an adult. And I think that again, once he's trying so hard to fight against it because it's a huge stumbling block in his argument.
Right, for the version of history that is most friendly to what he is trying to convince people of, those facts you just mentioned, that Vince Bantu mentioned, the brother MJ mentioned, there are problems, and so it's basically in his interest to sully the legacy of these ancient African kingdoms that were largely Christian. Brother Chris, thoughts on that? And then I'm going to play this clip about him saying, we didn't fight as much because we accepted all the deities, because I think this relates to the line of where we're at. Brother Chris first.
Yeah, just echoing what they were saying. It's funny because I was reading that the history of Christianity book this week too, Matthew. And it's funny because you brought that up, and I actually highlighted a part of it about Frumentius and Izana, and it talks about just his Izana's like Nefer was saying, as far as his conversion to Christianity in his own will, and then his marrying and his adoption and Christianity and spreading it. and basically, you know, there was some. It says here that most cynically by suggesting that he knew of Constantine and had to consider Christianity an appropriate ideology of great kings. So he was using different tactics and tools to spread Christianity around it during this time, and it wasn't like he was strong-armed to do it. It was on his own volition.
You know, this is probably the part we should talk about this. Okay, I'm going to the 4 panel view, so we're all on camera now. I was there at the debate. Now, I was in the back row, right? But I saw, because I was directly behind this section of the front row, and in that section was Jabari's his people that he brought with him, right? Including his mentor. Jabari, during the time he was trying to kind of get you to say, oh, well, maybe there is some shady business going on with the conversion of this king. During that time, talking about him being a minor, his mentor shouted out, it was inappropriate. And like he said it like I think a few times. And basically it's like, is this dude trying to say like the Christian mentor was like R. Kelly and this king or something? Like, what's he? I mean, I don't. What's
before you play the clip, man? Huge kudos to Dr. Eric Mason for how he handled that. That was very noble. That was a very biblical way to doing it, because impulsively, I don't know if I would have had that patience to not shut him down. So big props to Dr. Eric Mason for how he handled that. Everything
the way Dr. Eric Mason, Epiphany, and the Kingdom Movement and everyone associated with this debate, I found to be just 100% excellent. Every aspect of it was beautiful, 100% kudos, like just almost like flawless, you know, just boom, 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 boom. You might be talking about later on when, the other time is when towards the end he shouts out, don't call it Egypt, and got mad and said, stop calling it Egypt and stop calling Jesus. His name wasn't Jesus. Yeah. And he was all upset. And Dr. Eric Mason did a good job, and I respected the way he did it. It was a bit odd, but you know, I was sitting there thinking at the same time, if this was a debate with the Hebrew Israelite, that would have been the whole debate. It would have been all nonstop, every person like popcorn popping up, trying to add their. So, you know, it was with a relatively respectful situation, and it was live enough. And I like drama a little bit. So I was like, oh, yeah, somebody's doing some shenanigans in the front row. I was kind of happy a little bit, because then everyone's going to talk about that part, right? Did you guys catch that part on the video as well?
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys able to catch that? Anything to say to that?
I would have been like,
what do you mean by what you said, Elder? Is that more? Is there more you want to share?
I feel like it's that emotionalism. And then after part 1 came out, the reaction on social media was like, like everybody on both sides just said, okay, if this is the way the rest of the other 2 parts are going to go, then obviously Dr. Bantu won. And so what you had was people coming forward and saying, well, why did they pick Jabari? Why didn't they pick somebody else? These are people from his side, like people who argue against Christianity. And so I said that to say that I believe the elder, you know, may have felt that same vibe that, man, we losing this. Like, so let me go ahead and throw a couple jabs in there to try to.
Yeah, he might have been sitting there thinking, despite the fact that Jabari wore our war colors, red and black, and is channeling the war vibrations of our gods, we're still losing.
Jabari was taking too many body blows, and you know that was. And just then the one reaction.
The friendly fire that he self-inflicted, that I'm sure you're going to bring up later.
Right, but in all seriousness, I don't know if you guys know. I mean, you guys know on the panel, but to the audience, Jabari actually said at the end of the debate, "I wore red and black because these are our war colors." Do you guys remember that part? He said that he wore red and black specifically because it sort of channels the, you know, he was, and I was like, wow, he's okay. But it's interesting. It shows you his mindset about it. I actually thought Jabari did a great job representing what Kemet is. I mean, I'm not saying he won because I think the truth is on the other side, but like, would some of these other guys really have done so much better? And some of them, I think they're criticizing Jabari because they're not true believers, meaning they basically want this sanitized version of Kemet that's essentially atheism with pyramids and birds or something. And Jabari's not that guy, you know? So they're like, well, you know, I don't know. That's my thought.
I agree with that, because there's a lot of other, like you said, in that vein, there's a lot of other people who practice Kemet who are like atheists. There's other, you know, YouTube channels of, you know, people who are just like, there should be no type of collaboration with Kemet and Christians, you know, because Christianity is a total myth. And by you you know, they like Jabari, he actually got blasted by other, you know, type of other Kemet channels because of his desire to work with Christians. I think personally, I think it's deceptive, because I think from a Jabari standpoint, I think he does do a good representation. I think it can be deceptive because it can allow people who are, you know, the urban Christian community, say, it kind of bring more of an ecumenical approach to their thinking. I think that can be dangerous. But as far as a representation, I think it was a lot more peaceful than a lot of other people who practice Kemet.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Next clip. Speaking of peace and war, let's play this clip where Jabari speaks about the benefits of ancient Kemeticism.
In ancient Kemet, every city had a different temple consecrated to a different deity. Now, they understood they weren't talking about a literal story, so it wasn't as difficult for them not to have battles and fights around it. That doesn't mean they never did, but it means that it was easier for them not to argue, because they never said Asar was a literal person. They never said Ast was a literal person. They never said Heru was a literal person. Half of them actually are amalgamations of animals and humans. No one was saying that those were actually people that existed.
Hold on, one more time, this part.
About a literal story. So it wasn't as difficult for them not to have battles and fights around it. That doesn't mean they never did.
How do we
that it was easier for
how do we interpret what he just said? Chris, how do you interpret what he just said?
You know, it's funny, when I heard this clip, I was like, okay, so it's not literal. So if I just created Christ to be just figurative head, am I wrong? We believe that he's the way, the truth, the life. We believe that he's a real being who had real flesh and blood. But according to, you know, the mythological point of Kemet, like, who determines who's the truth figure or not? You know what I mean? Seth, for instance, with he brought up amalgamations. Seth, you know, wonder if or Ptah or something like that. Wonder if I say, okay, well, you know what? Instead of Ptah or any other god, Ra, I just want to make Christ my mythological Kemet god. Like, would I be wrong in that? I mean, that was the first thing. That was the first thing I thought about when it comes. I mean, if it's all a myth, if it's myth versus literal truth of Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, the life," who's going to believe what? You know what I mean? And then usually the backing of that is, okay, well, it was copied from these myths from the mythology. Okay, so it go to me. I thought about C.S. Lewis from Mere Christianity, Liar, Lunatic Lord, right? So if you have a real Jesus coming and saying that I'm the way, the truth, and life, no one comes to the Father except through me, either he was inspired to do that by some, you know, mythological gods, or he's divinely inspired. He is the God man, you know. So that was some thoughts that I thought about when I heard that clip.
Nefertiti, what do you think there? Because is he basically saying, I mean, I want to try to interpret it charitably. Since ancient Egyptians knew their religion was fairy tales, they didn't fight about it that much.
That's basically what he's saying. He's saying that they each had their own gods in their own little corners, and it was okay, but not always okay, but it was for the most part okay. And we sometimes fought over it, but not all the time. We didn't fight over it because we all knew that this was all fake. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that one bit. I don't think that they were walking around believing that it was a myth. There may have been some element of it being removed in terms of him being a real person, or whether this is all spiritual, you know what I'm saying? Whether this is all unseen. But I don't think that they were dedicating their lives and preparing these elaborate funeral services, you know, preparing sacrifices, having priests for these different faith systems if they thought that it was just somebody made it up. I don't believe that at all. I'm not buying that. And that's another aspect of revisionism that takes place today. That if you talk to these people in the conscious community, you're going to hear some aspect of these weren't really gods. They didn't really believe in gods. What these are scientific elements, aspects of nature that they were trying to portray in the hieroglyphs or in the metaneter. And again, that's nonsense. What you're doing basically is trying to find a way to make them believe what you're saying they believe, so it can validate what you do now. So it can validate you being an atheist. But indigenous peoples the world over have never ever been atheists. It's foreign. That's a foreign concept. And so absolutely they believe in gods, and they did go to war with each other. Absolutely.
That's the real white man's religion, Nefertiti. Atheism.
There it is. There it is. If we're spitting facts, that's what it is. Yes, absolutely. And a recent invention at that.
Yeah, I'm just seriously. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of really not joking, people. I mean, talking to the live chat, who's like, wait. Yeah, that's the real white man's religion. And then, you know, our brother Garfield's all out there, like, you know,
yeah.
all the way, the panel you're hearing, everybody, I'm going to go to you, MJ, in a second here. We got Nefertiti. Follow her on Facebook, facebook.com/NEFERNITTYESQ. She's always got the bomb memes and just these little video clips. I mean, you're just not going to find better stuff out there. YouTube.com/Chris Featherstone. That's my man from Columbus, Ohio, representing. He's got the @ChrisProlific, and that's how you follow him. Go OH. All right, that's how you follow him with on Instagram and whatnot as well, you know. And then, of course, my man MJ Jackson. The best way to find him on YouTube is if you go on YouTube and put in the search bar Urban Christian Institute. So your turn before I play the next clip, MJ.
Well, you know, we got the normal palette, okay? And on the normal palette, the king is attributing victory to Horus. So if you don't believe that this is a really real person, why are you attributing victory to certain gods? Why are you sacrificing? Why are you giving thanks? What's up? Are they crazy, or did they really believe this? And furthermore, atheism actually kind of sort of is the white man's religion, because we got, you know, Socrates was made to commit suicide for teaching new and strange things regarding the gods. So they made him drink poison, so to speak.
Hemlock. Yep. All right. So switching a little bit here now to the rip-off claims, because we haven't really fully explained this because I didn't know how much background we want to do, but everybody watching, this was one day's worth of events, but 3 separate topics, 3 different debates by the same 2 gentlemen. So Brother Jabari, Vince Bantu did 3 different debates. So there'd be a stop and they would go to the next one. And again, shout out to Epiphany Kingdom Movement, you know, Brother Chris Bouchard, and of course, Dr. Eric Mason, who earlier was in the chat. And since he requested it, go ahead. I'll shout out to you to Divine Prospect, AKA Ron Shields, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries.
He requested it, stop.
Well, he said I was being biased with my shout outs, indicating I hadn't gave him a shout out yet.
Hey, we love you, Ron. We love you, bro.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So
that's right.
All right. So let's start here with all right. Because I think we've kind of hinted on this. We'll do the misogyny stuff in a second here, but let's start here. Here's what Jabari basically says: you guys stole your ideas from us. And, you know, let's play this and let's see how that shakes out. And, you know, joking about the white man's religion, everybody knows a lot of the scholarship based upon these points is from white scholars who are dead and discredited. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think Chris tried to head that off earlier, way in the beginning, when you were trying to get the technological aspect of it right.
Dr. John Herrick Clark would call them neglected scholars.
Neglected. Oh, it's all in the phrase. Neglected, discredited, tomato. Here we go.
You're going to see archetypes for Jesus within the stories of Heru and the stories of Asar. It's not in one place, because remember, it's not a carbon copy, but a copy nonetheless. That's what occurs. So we see Heru as the son of God. You know very well that he's the son of Asar, right? Do you know this? Okay. If I have to give you a citation for that, you're not equipped to hear this conversation. Does that make sense? That is just evident and known. He also was born of a virgin and displayed in a crib outside of temples. Citation. The Egyptians have consecrated up to this day the childbirth of a virgin and the nativity of her son, who was exposed in crib to the adoration of the people. This is from the Chronicle Pascal from actually the 6th century CE. Citation. So that you should understand that people understood that that was happening in Kemetic temples. In fact, Heru is usually born on December 25th. Here's another citation. Every year, the temples of Horus presented to worshipers in midwinter, on or about December 25th, a scenic model of the birth of Horus. The Roman writer Macrobius adds to that the young god was a symbol for the rebirth of the sun at that date. The whole world by the year 1 AD was familiar with the Egyptian statues of pictures of Isis and her divine maid Horus in her arms. That's Joseph McCabe from the Story of Religious Controversy. His birth is heralded by 3 kings. You should know.
Woo! There's a lot here. There's a lot here. No,
Okay.
you didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus is the Son of God and the second person of the Trinity, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
I have to give you a citation. There's no need for this discussion.
Yeah, I'm trying to be, again, chill here, but just because you're citing a book, that's not really what people mean when you say citation per se. Generally, the idea is a primary source, or I think we can also say there's instances in which sort of legitimate, as long as it's recognized for what is expert understanding, maybe they're summarizing something, for example, is in place. But primary source has to do with something contemporaneous or someone on the ground, not some European writer, Joseph McCabe. Centuries later, we show us this information from one of the Book of the Dead texts, something like that, but I want to just saying citation, just because you're citing any source is not really what's meant. Isn't that right, Nefertiti? I mean,
that's absolutely right. And then he just he says it so quickly, 6th century, and then he moves on. Bruh, 6th century, you mean 600 years after? Come on, man. I don't know. All sources are not created equally. Let's just put that out there. Man. And I also want to give a word of encouragement to anybody who has seen the debate or is watching this. There are, Brother Vocab said that when he was writing up there, he kind of anticipated some of the things that Jabari was going to say, because there's only X amount of arguments that they make within this realm of Christianity being a copy of some ancient Egyptian religion. And so once you see that this, maybe I'll be generous and say 10 arguments. Once you see that these 10 arguments are all based on a weak foundation, you don't have to worry about this question in your own mind anymore. So hearing what Brother Jabari has to say, we spoke on earlier how he was a good representation of what they believe. And he definitely put forth some of the same arguments that they always put forth. And, we just know that they're false because we've spent time addressing them. But I just want to encourage you that if you go ahead and do the research and find for yourself whether what they're saying is true or not, you'll see that it's not true. And that's why he couldn't cite the Book of the Dead or the Book of Coming Forth by Day, because it's not there. It's absent from there. So he kind of says, if I had to give you a cite for him being born, him being the Son of God, then you're not ready to have this conversation. Next point, he was born by a virgin. Hold up. That's debatable. We don't all agree with that. We all may agree who his daddy was, but we don't all agree on how he got here. You're claiming she was a virgin, but the original text does not say that in any way, shape, or form. So.
Right, and I'm going to go to MJ next, but I just want, if you even go to the description of this book where it's sold, the author of one of the citations was Joseph McCabe, born in 1867. I mean, these guys love 19th century atheists, and guess what? Joseph McCabe was a 19th century English author on free thought. It's almost like, what are the qualifications for a source to be cited from a Kemetic debater? Let's see. White guy from Europe, atheist living in the 19th century. Check, check, check. Let's cite it. I'm sorry. I'm trying. And of course, the guy was a lapsed Roman Catholic as well. And so that's the Joseph McCabe source of this book published in 1929. So there's that. But MJ, comment on that. And I hope everyone caught in the audience. I'll just take care of the light work, the easy one that anybody could do on the panel. The Bible never says Jesus was born on December 25th, so it's not relevant to the discussion. But not only that, your own sources don't talk about your gods being born on December 25th either, from what most of us can ascertain. So what are we talking about here? MJ.
Yes. First and foremost, just like Sister Nefertiti said, Isis was not a virgin in any sense of the word. She had to piece back the brother's body. I'm talking about Osiris' body back together, and then fashion him a private part so that they could copulate or have sex.
He had a Frankenstein.
A golden one.
Oh, it was golden? He was the original golden member. Austin Powers is what ripped off Ancient Kemet. A Frankenstein golden member, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, baby.
Isn't this like a zombie-ized situation of necrophilia?
Yes.
That's exactly what it
It
is.
doesn't sound like a virgin birth and isn't it a bird doing the heavy lifting, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like bestiality. So zombie-ized necrophilia, mixed with a touch of bestiality does not make a virgin birth.
But it doesn't stop there.
Go ahead.
In Plutarch from the 2nd century, it points out that Osiris and Isis, Aset, whatever you want to call it, got it on in their mother's womb. They were getting it on in the womb. So she is not a virgin in any sense of the word.
So wait, this is prenatal incest?
Yes, absolutely. Messing with a brother.
I like calling things what they are. This is prenatal incest. Hey, that's a good argument.
Make it plain, brother.
If you believe in Kemet, you should definitely be pro-life then, because you never know, those twins might need.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry. The reason why I pointed out that it's a 2nd century source is because if Jabari is cool with citing a 6th century source, we should be cool with citing a 2nd century source. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And his other source, Chronicles Pascal, that source is devastating for anybody who actually knows what it is. If you know what this source is about the prophet Jeremiah being in Egypt and prophesying to Egyptian priests that God would shake their idols and that they would come to recognize a virgin giving birth to a son. Very devastating.
Well, I did not know that. I'm glad you shared that. I did look up. I need to find out what this Chronicle Pascal is. By the way, just totally off, but related. Have you guys ever realized Jeremiah did go to Egypt at the end of his life? You know, and you have this apocryphal source talking about it because that's an apocryphal source, but it's in the Bible about Jeremiah going back to Egypt in his life. And there's even a text that says to some of the Israelites, like, don't be going back to Egypt, this and that. To the Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, to the Hebrew Israelites. The Israelites did go back to Egypt, and there's even parts of it in the Bible. We don't even have to jump to 3rd Maccabees, which we can. We don't even have to jump to Josephus, which we can. But Hebrew Israelites, we could just jump to Jeremiah. Those Israelites ended up back in Egypt. Yep. So we don't need to leapfrog to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, pulling back from our friends, the Hebrew Israelites. We're trying to have fun here, though. It's just true.
What is it? What are there? Oh, gosh. Wasn't there a... Okay, so Scooby-Doo, right? So when they would always try to catch the criminal, you would have Freddy that would always blame it on red herring, right? Remember that? It was none other than red herring. And so every time we go away or talk about something that's non-Hebrew Israelites, you're like the Freddy when it comes to red herring. You always got to bring that Hebrew Israelite.
Hey, that was the first time. They're in the live chat.
Red herring.
Hey, the Dagger Squad's in the building. And shout out to Christopher Young for the super chat. I've been seeking information on Kemet Hotep for some time. Thanks, Vocab, for introducing me to more apologists that can provide more insight in the subject. I subscribe to the channels. That's good, because Christopher Young, if you are looking for the information, I'm not your guy. I'm not saying I don't know anything, but compared to these three, I don't know anything. And so these three, you want more information, follow their work. It's good, high quality stuff. And as you can tell, they make it interesting. All right, now with that, not only let's jump to the Q&A, because this relates to what we were just talking about. There's a man named Adam Coleman from True ID who, the minute he began asking this question, the room suddenly got darker. And the reason why the room suddenly got darker is because he brought all the shade. Yeah. Listen to this, the way he phrases it. And I was sitting right beside him because we came together. So Adam and Coleman and I came up together, right? And then with the brother who used to be Hebrews Light named Marcus, and then David Wood. So we're all sitting there together. When he stood up, I just looked and smiled. Everyone listen to this. I might have to play this one twice. We'll see. You guys probably already know what I'm talking about. And this, the way Adam did this was just lovely. And so let me go ahead and all right, set this up. All right, here's Adam Coleman's question to Jabari at the end, and I'm glad there was a Q&A. Let's play this.
So my question is for Brother Jabari. The fact is that the vast majority of modern scholarship on the historicity of Jesus are in sharp disagreement with you, and that the scholars from various worldviews affirm that Jesus is a historical person and not a myth. And that's based on sources like Tacitus, Josephus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, so forth. My question is, while the claims you made are popular regurgitations of the debunked Zeitgeist documentary, can you provide primary source evidence and scholarship to support your poorly evidenced claims that Jesus is being merely mythical? Thanks.
Hold on, one more time. I got to play that question one more time. One more time. I got to play that and make sure nobody missed Adam Cole. I'm going to turn it up a little too. Here we go. One more time. And I'll play the whole thing as a response. Here we go.
So my question is for Brother Jabari. The fact is that the vast majority of modern scholarship on the historicity of Jesus are in sharp disagreement with you, and that the scholars from various worldviews affirm that Jesus was a historical person and not a myth. And that's based on sources like Tacitus, Josephus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, so forth. My question is, while the claims you made are popular regurgitations of the debunked Zeitgeist documentary, can you provide primary source evidence and scholarship to support your poorly evidenced claims that Jesus is being merely mythical? Thanks.
Can I say something? First of all, I did not even call Jesus a myth on this stage. Maybe he watching YouTube or something. That wasn't to... Now, I do say that Jesus is a myth. So he came here watching Sonetta saying, you know what, I'm going to get him. You're going to be disappointed. I don't have time to respond to that, brother. I'm Tacitus, Joseph. There are many issues with those citations. Why does a Jew call Jesus the Christ? When you look closely at it, as they now are able to do, it seems like something was erased. Eusebius was known as a well-known plagiarizer.
Oh.
You have to understand that when you also see in a tradition of the things that are being applied to one person have happened before.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Nefertiti, I know, I feel like if you were there, you might have asked a question almost just like that.
I surely would have.
Did you like
I think he evidenced that he was caught off guard by the question. He wasn't really prepared to answer it or deal with the subject matter, the substance of the question. And so he just gave a little tidbit and tried to dismiss it. And then all that emotionalism, again, you see, he's like very charismatic, you know, being very dramatic and whatnot, but he's not addressing the question, bruh, is where are the primary sources that back up your claim? Because you didn't provide very many, if any of them. And so, you know, instead of saying, okay, well, I have this, this, and this, he goes and says, well, that source is weak, but that's not really the gist of the question. And again, it's a theme that I repeat often, over and over, and I think the cure to ignorance is research, right? So if you don't know something, ignorance simply means not knowing. But there comes a point where you just have to lay it down, lay the argument down. So if you go ahead and you try to find December 25th in the ancient Egyptian text, if you go and try to find, his mother being a virgin, if you go and try to find him being crucified or rising after 3 days, we're talking about Horus here, the ancient Egyptian god. If you go try to find those things, you're not going to find them because they're absent from the text. And that just goes to show that what he's teaching is false. But he wants you to reevaluate your relationship with the truth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the way Adam came out was perfect. And notice there is a little bit of a weasel preposition. I never said Jesus was a myth on this stage. Somebody's been watching YouTube. Well, Jabari, I think you've been watching YouTube too, because you sound like Zeitgeist from Harlem right now.
He quoted Dr. Bantu in the beginning of the presentation. He quoted something that Dr. Bantu had said previously. So apparently he's been watching YouTube too. He's been watching what we're doing, just like we're watching what he's doing. And Brother Coleman was very instrumental in putting the debate together. So of course we're doing our research. He admitted, Jabari also mentioned that he had a research squad put together as well to help him do research for the debate. So there's nothing wrong with that. Of course we're gonna, study our opponent before we step up. That's common sense,
That's
exactly.
right.
That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, if you came into a debate not knowing, even from a Q&A standpoint, if you're affirming a certain stance and you don't know anything about the person you're asking, like it seemed like it would be a disadvantage. But why is it backlash? Oh, you know me. You're asking a question about what I believe. And there seemed like there's some type of backlash to that. That to me, that made absolutely no sense. There was no sense to it. It was like when he was doing all that, that was metaphorically dodging the question.
I like that.
And it was like, dude, that's a complete non-answer. And what you try to do was dodge the question, and then go back to his right, do a matrix to the question, and go back to his gift of gab and say, I didn't say here that Jesus was a myth, but I did say that Jesus is a myth, and I don't have time to explain it, but I will debunk the sources that you gave. I have time to debunk your part, but I don't have time to support my part. Come on, man. I mean, that's just plain. That's just a plain lapse of scholarship in every sense of the word.
And that would be forgivable, but every time I've seen Jabari, he always says a historian. And I actually heard him when he was, I think, with Brother Berean say, you are in the presence of a historian. Or was that when he said you were in the presence of a high priest? Either way, he always talks about he's a historian. And it's kind of like, bro. And then the main guys he cites as his influences as historians, real troubling, And again, we're doing the smaller version, but guys, everyone needs to subscribe to BK Apologists YouTube channel. Alfredo, definitely drop that link in there. Everyone needs to subscribe. As you can probably already tell the True ID, Adam Coleman, his channel and his fantastic work. They did a multi-part breakdown in much greater detail. It was just excellent. And even she was in the chat earlier, Miss Titus too. She's the one actually who provided the clips. And so she did a small response as well. So that's a short response. This is a medium response. You got large response. And of course, you definitely want to subscribe to everyone on the panel today. Nefertiti, follow her on Facebook, NEFERNITTYESQ. She does a great work, not just memes, but very thought-provoking posts as well. Chris Featherstone, just like the name sounds, youtube.com/Chris Featherstone. And then look up MJ Jackson at Urban Christian Institute. Now, guys, there's more clips to play, but I don't want to make this too long. So there's at least one I'm definitely going to play. There's a couple we might not get to. But before I do that, because this is the one where he talks about what he worships, and it's like, whoa, all right. MJ, I want to make sure you comment on what we talked about. Then I'm going to play this clip, let everyone comment it, and kind of do a summary wrap up here. And again, shout out to the live chat. I apologize, I can't give a shout out to everybody. I saw my man K-Dub. I saw a lot of the great people from the SA squad and the mod squad. So shout out to you guys. Apologies for that, but we're just kind of keep it moving. But MJ, I don't think we got your opinion on the last one or anything else. I want to make sure we get back to you.
Yes, in terms of Brother Jabari dodging that question, even in his dodge, he got a lot of the information wrong, because nothing was not erased. Things were were added. It was Christian interpolations, but we do have an ancient Arabic version of the Testimonium Flavium that goes back to the 10th century, and those words that are added are not in there, so we can reconstruct what was really in Josephus about Jesus. So.
Well, since you brought that up, I'll go there a little bit before I play this next clip. So what Brother MJ is referring to is the place where Josephus refers to the historical figure of Jesus. Now, scholars for a long time have said this quote, this discussion rather about Jesus is a little bit fishy, because this is something that probably only a Christian would write, because of the way there's certain words and phrases in there that don't sound like something Josephus would say as a he didn't believe that Jesus was the Christ, right? And so a lot of scholars had actually already reconstructed a redacted version of the Testimonium Flavimonium, however you say it in Latin. It gets a little confusing, but when you see it in scholar literature, a lot of times they just abbreviate it as capital TF, and they're not talking about transformers. So when you see TF, that's what they're talking about, Josephus' section on Jesus, right? And they had kind of reconstructed it already, saying this, if you take out what I think are probably Christian interpolations, it would look like this. Then we found an Arabic translation of Josephus that did not have the Christianese in it. And that's what you just referred to. Shlomo Sands is one Jewish writer who's written about this. And there's others, I think another man named Pines. But you can find good information on this. And what's wild is the version we found matched up almost identically to the already prior redacted version that scholars had said this would make more sense for Josephus to say. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, but Jesus talks about John the Baptist, and he talks about James. And when he speaks about James, he says the brother of the so-called Messiah. So that little section doesn't make sense unless the so-called Messiah had been discussed. And you see him being discussed in another part of the Antiquities. And because of Josephus' interest, he actually discusses John the Baptist and James even in more greater detail than he does Jesus, because to him, Jesus is kind of like an anomaly, but not somebody who's really the Messiah, right? And so anyways, the point is, even in that little comeback, kind of got some stuff wrong. But ultimately, the Gospels are the best sources. And you got James, 1 Thessalonians, written at 45 AD in relationship to this. But the point is, Jabari does adhere to some version of the Christ mythos theory or thesis or hypothesis. And I don't know why he didn't just want to say, well, yeah, here's, it was interesting. Now, here's where it gets wild, folks. I'm so glad this guy said, what exactly do you guys worship? We're just going to have to talk about this. Everyone, listen carefully to this. I thought this was fascinating. I was so glad that this brother asked this question. And we might have to play this one twice. But check this out, everybody. All right, here we go.
Who is the God that you all worship or you ascribe to? That's a good question that I get sometimes for folks who are really genuinely trying to understand what we do, but may not understand everything. Sometimes you've been told that we are, for example, polytheists. We would not describe our tradition that way. African traditions, most African traditions, all that I have found, actually argue that the divine force is all things. How do you describe something that is everything? If the ceiling was the floor and the floor the ceiling, what would you call it? And so they don't spend a lot of time talking about the one divine force. They talk about how the force behaves in different instances. It's a coalescement of divine energy that allows you to do certain things. Now, having said that, that means that I may call in a multiplicity of names. I am a priest of the shrine of Ma'at. So that is the shrine that I have consecrated with my queen. But I call it, before I got up here, I called certain names. So I don't see that as like being a different God. Does that make sense? It's a different type of energy. I believe that the divine force is not just energy, it's also matter. But the fact is that when you see these things, our inability to see past with our five senses betrays us. So that what we do is we think that I am distinct from this table, that he is distinct from me. And in actuality, that is to some degree an illusion. And so this is a really complex topic, but I want you to understand that you could, if I'm going into battle, I may call one name. By the way, Kemetic people, you see me dressed in red and black. What was I doing? Somebody just said, yeah, see, they whispering because they didn't want you to know that I am invoking Sutek because I'm going into battle. And so that is, let's see, look at them smiling. They know that.
All right. Like I said, Red and Black invokes Sutek. And here I just thought he was an Atlanta Falcons fan. All right. Nefertiti, what did you think of that answer?
I feel like he didn't want to answer the question. He's trying to distinguish himself and make his belief system appealing and sound exotic. And just listen, just be real. What is it? You know, you said that you're dedicated to a certain type of energy. Ma'at is supposedly a goddess, and they are definitely distinct characters. They're distinct deities in their own respect. And so I just think it's a little bit disingenuous to not answer the question and say, what's the name of your God? Everything is God. You're God, I'm God, the table's God. I'm not separate from you. I'm not separate from the table. If that's the case, then why dedicate yourself to a particular line? Why say that I'm a priest of Ma'at if Ma'at is no different from any other deity? That doesn't make any sense. And then he goes on to speak on behalf of all African traditions, are the ones that he says he's come across and said that they don't believe in God in the way that we understand God. And that's simply not true. Specifically, West African traditions have a bunch of deities, polytheism, but they also have a superior, supreme God who's sovereign over those lower level deities. And so to say that there is no distinction between them it's a lie. That's just not true. And I don't appreciate it.
Are you saying he got some aspects of African spiritual forms wrong in his description of them?
Absolutely. And sometimes when I come to conversations with people and they misrepresent evidence or misrepresent history or whatever the situation is, the question is either you're doing this intentionally, so what I can say is that you're lying, or you're misinformed and you don't know what you're talking about. Which one is it? And I'm not going to call which one I believe it is. I don't believe, I don't have a preference for either one. But what I'm saying is he's definitely wrong. That's just not true. What he's saying is not true. There absolutely is polytheism in Africa. And again, Africa is so huge and so diverse and populated with so many peoples, especially at that time, that we can't just make it seem as though it's monolithic and speak of them as though there's the African way. But what he's presenting as the truth is not the truth. They didn't see that there was only, he even said earlier that between the different factions, they were fighting sometimes against each other. So how y'all fighting and y'all both worshiping the same God with a different name? That don't make sense. He's not being honest.
They was probably all wearing red and black while they was fighting. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's funny because Nefer was talking about Ma'at, and that's there's still a personification when it comes to the gods and goddesses. You can't say, okay, I'll dedicate myself to the lineage of Ma'at, but at the same time, I can invoke on any type of divine energy and force. If the table is a floor, is a ceiling, choose which one. Ma'at's not the God. Ma'at's not the same as the floor to ceiling. So which one are you choosing? Either you're going to go into the personification of Ma'at, or you're going to say, well, I can just invoke divine energy and wear my red and black anytime I want. It just seems like it's such a contradiction right there.
MJ. Oh, you muted, bro. You muted. You got to unmute yourself there.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
What he was proposing was pantheism.
Mm-hmm.
And pantheism is the idea that everything is God. There are no distinctions. And it's utterly irrational. So why are you complaining about police shootings if everything is one? How can we account for the beginning of the universe? How can we account for all these distinctions and things like that? It is utterly irrational and it literally makes no sense. So if your worldview can be shown to be false or have contradictions, those are red flags that you should abandon the worldview, and that is not true. So yes, he was proposing in one word, pantheism.
Am I the only person who thought a little bit that he kind of looked? I'm going to show you, we mentioned the Matrix earlier, right? And I want to show you guys something else, because I kind of feel like I kind of feel like a little bit that Brother Jabari sounded in his answer a little bit like this person. Am I the only one?
I'm so done.
And he even kind of sounded like him. Like, I know this will bear some of you, but let me just quote from the script of Empire Strikes Back a little bit, right? So Luke's X-Wing goes into the swamp, and then he says, "Oh, we'll never get it out now." And then Yoda says, "So certain are you? Always with you, it cannot be done. Hear you nothing that I say? Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different. No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned." All right, I'll give it a try. No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. And then Luke tries to get the X-Wing out, and he can't. He says it's too big. And then Yoda says, "Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And well, you should not." Now, here's where he sounds like Jabari. "For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship." Doesn't he sound like, is it just...
Yes.
You know what? Out of all of this, what we just discovered is that Star Wars is his citation, but he just didn't want to admit it.
He's all like, he says something, and then in the bottom on brackets, it says Empire Strikes Back 1980 citation. Citation. Sorry, we're having fun, folks. Look, if you guys, some people can't roll with this kind of stuff, but you gotta have fun while it ain't always grim. All right, final thoughts on this debate discussion. I think we had an excellent discussion. I'm gonna look through the live chat while you guys are doing kind of your summary wrap-ups. MJ, we'll go to you first if that's cool. We'll do Nefertiti last, so that puts Chris in the middle. I'm gonna look through the live chat, see if there's anything we want to touch in there real quick. MJ, wrap it up and tell people how to follow you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, you can follow me on my page, MJ Jackson. You can also throw in there the Urban Christian Institute. That'll pull me right up. You can find me at the Urban Christian Institute on Facebook or Matthew Jackson. Feel free to hit me up. But my general thoughts is that this was zeitgeist repackaged in Kemetic garb. And the argumentation, it was a 3-step argumentation for me. It was appeal to emotion, meaning to get you not to think critically, but to think emotionally, to pull you in emotionally and things like that, to establish that connection. And then it was argument from assertion. Okay, where Brother Jabari asserted a lot of things, but he didn't establish how the hypothesis or the case that he was making accounted for all of the evidence for is Zana becoming a Christian as an adult, or Christianity spreading by the preaching of the gospel. He was simply presupposing his assertions as if they were true without proving them. And lastly, he failed to connect the dots with Jesus being a ripoff of Kemetic religion or Kemetic spirituality. He did not show how in a first century Palestinian Jewish context, how monotheistic Jews could come to ever hold a belief. He didn't even show from archaeology anything of the sort. He didn't touch it. He just simply asserted. So he appealed to emotions, he argued from assertions, and he failed to connect the dots for me. So I give him an F.
He just graded him. Ain't nobody asked you to do that. I'll give him an F. Well, thank you. All right. Oh man, you're funny, dude. No, that was good though. That was good. MJ is cool, man. You definitely guys got to follow him. MJ is an apologetics bibliophile. The man knows his books. Always got the strong book recommendations. And so shout out to MJ on that. Urban Christian Institute. Brother Chris at Chris Prolific. What you got to say, man?
Hey, so look, I don't know Jabari personally, so I would love to meet him. Real
cool. He was real cool, real respectful in person. He's someone I could see you having a conversation with. That's my take on him, and I think he means well. I honestly do, despite sometimes me shaking my head at him. I mean, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm just telling you, I think you would like to meet him. He is a brother I think you can have a real dialogue and discussion with. And I think he's genuine. This is my reading of him. I really do believe that. But go ahead, Chris. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And in that same vein, that's probably why I would want to meet him. He seems like, intellectually, he has the gift of gab. So even if what he's saying is wrong, what he's saying is and could be convincing. So I would just, admonish the Christian and even the non-Christian watching this and, curious and going into Kemet. Look, man, Jesus is very clear. We brought up John 14:6. He's the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father through me. So I would study Jesus and revolve everything around that, because either Jesus is just the most false, deceptive claim person in the history of mankind, or everything that he said and he did was authentic, factual, and truth. And archaeologically, the more we go away from scripture, it's funny because a lot of stuff, things degenerate, but it's funny because from the scripture time, things actually gets better with contextual criticisms, and we find different copies of things. So I would say, read your Bible, for the Christian, for the non-Christian, continue to search, continue to find that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You can tap into different things like Kemet all you want, but it has no grounding toward the authenticity of Jesus. And I just want to, I'm a person of the word. I love the Bible. So I want to conclude with the scripture here. The Lord led me to the scripture as we was talking here. Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, the conclusion when all has been heard is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. So go in peace.
Amen, amen, amen. And if we ever got to do this again, I don't know. The clips we did not get to play this time around are the ones of the charges of misogyny and plagiarism. I think those are really the only two as far as clips. Now, remember, again, this is 3 debates. There's no way we could cover it all. But if you listen to what brother Adam Coleman and BK Apologists did on their YouTube channels, it's just phenomenal. And I really, really hope people check those out as a follow-up to this, as well as following everybody on the panel. Shout out to some of the people in the live chat. We got, the Mod Squad and the SA Squad, D New, and I don't see everybody, but Rox B and Warrior Woman, and we got Nate, and of course, Liza. You guys help promote this show and a lot of things we do. So shout out to you all. Sorry if I missed anybody. And then to close it out, last but not least, Nephernity. And again, I just appreciate you coming on, everybody. And I hope in the new year, maybe we can do some more stuff like this. I've been running this idea by folks of doing this thing called the lunch table, where maybe once a month we have kind of this kind of panel thing where we rotate different folks who are doing quality work, but maybe aren't as known as they should be. And the idea is not so people are known, but I'm okay with recognizing excellence. And the idea is, these are people who are in the trenches and doing quality work. And sometimes people, they don't know that the answers are there, is what I'm saying. And that's why I want to see you guys as ministry being promoted, because the answers are for our time. And sometimes people just don't know that they're there. And so I'm excited about 2020. Because I think there's going to be some good things going on. So Nephernity, you got the last word, sis.
All right. So yeah, thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here on your channel. That's for sure. As I mentioned earlier on, this debate is iconic to me. It represents the fact that urban apologetics is being taken seriously, and that we are answering those questions, as you stated, that have been plaguing some of us for a while, and we either didn't have the right answers or didn't have the resources. And pastors like Dr. Eric Mason, Pastor Jerome Gay over at the Urban Perspective, they are making sure that their congregations, Pastor Jason LaPlanche, they're making sure that their congregations are equipped to be able to answer some of these questions. So some of the things that these people bring up may seem trivial to you if it doesn't touch you personally, but these can be faith altering questions if the answer isn't there. So I definitely wanted to reiterate that. As for the debate itself, like I said before, the arguments weren't profound and they weren't in terms of what Jabari was saying, and all due respect to him, what I'm saying is that they weren't original. They weren't original. These are the arguments that they tend to make because there's only a small box of things that they can pull from against Christianity. The arguments about Christianity being a copy of Kemetic fascism, the argument that it came from Europeans. These are things that you can check from history. You can see historically where Christianity got its legs and roots and how it spread and things of that nature. And so I just want to reiterate that you can rest assured that if you are a follower of Christ, that these arguments don't have to shake your faith. All it takes is prayer and research, and following some of these channels that Brother Vocab mentioned will definitely help you there. As far as getting in touch with me, I try to make my inbox open as possible. I am very busy, but I try to answer all the questions I can. One of the top questions that I get is where to start. If you're new to urban apologetics, where should you start? There's a book called Black Man's Religion by Greg Ursery and Keener, and it's available on Amazon, and it's a good primer. It gives you history of Christianity and some of the arguments that are often used to try to discredit Christianity. And they also have a sequel called Defending Black Faith, so you'll want to check those out. And I am on YouTube, so please subscribe to my channel there as well, youtube.com/Nephronitty. And Nephronitty.com is coming out soon, which will provide urban apologetics courses and just courses on being a Black Christian or urban Christian in this day and age.
Excellent. Those are excellent resources indeed. So we're trying to have the print resources as well as the digital resources, because sometimes in the digital realm, we can get the stuff quicker because publishing takes a while. And so some of these things have been addressed, some haven't. And so you combine those up, and we're on really good footing. It's just getting these things known and kind of putting them together. And we're on I think a really strong plane going forward. Everybody, I encourage you to check out tomorrow on the channel. I'm going to be interviewing a new young author from New York named Antoine Evans, who's actually written a book on the Hebrew Israelites. I'm going to be interviewing him and talking about his book. It's called Deceived from Within, and it's pretty legit stuff. And with that, shout out to the panel. You guys did a fantastic job. And anything wrong with the show was all on my end, but you guys covered up for it, did fantastic. Shout out to the live chat. We had about 130 people watching steady throughout the whole time. So that's good. And I know a lot of people will share this as it goes on. Feel free, everybody, whoever, obviously to the guests, but if you're watching, as far as I'm concerned, you can take this video, you can mirror it, you can take out chunks and sections. It's all good. Whatever. We just want to get the resources out there. So with that, we're going to close out. And guys, I don't know when I end this meeting if it's going to kick us all out too or not. We'll see, because we'll try to chat real quick on Facebook Messenger if it does that, just as a brief follow-up. But with that is it. And thank you so much. You guys are excellent. You guys are fantastic. Peace out. Shalom. See everyone tomorrow.
Nice.